Hello, this is CJ Baker, and this is the ongoing history of protest music. So, this is a follow up to a previous video where I listed the 25 best songs of 1974. So, that was part of a deep dive I was doing in connection with a music community I'm a part of. So, for this video, I'm going to discuss the top 25 songs of 1974. So before we get into the list, I'm just going to mention one honorable mention. It's 5446 by Toots and the Maytals. So I was seriously considering this for the list. And it's one of the best reggae songs of all time. But I decided to exclude it, partly because it was released as a single a couple of years prior to 1974. And there was a slightly different version of the song that appeared on Toots and the Maytals' 1969 album, Sweet and Dandy. So because of that fact, I decided that it was a bit questionable whether or not it was truly a 1974 song. So I excluded it. So we'll now get into the proper top 25 list. In song 25, it's Autobahn by Kraftwerk. And this song's absolutely epic. It's 22 minutes. And of course, at 22 minutes, that is a bit long. And if I'm being honest, I have to be in the right headspace. But when I am in the right headspace, the song is just a trip, which, of course, is the point. It's supposed to simulate the feel of driving on the Autobahn. And I've never been to Germany. I've never driven on the Autobahn. Don't have my license. But if driving on the Autobahn is anything like this song, I imagine it would be a cool experience. And I've also, over the years, had fun singing the wrong lyrics to the chorus. I used to sing it as odd, Autobahn, which the Autobahn part's right, but the rest of it is different German phrases, which I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, Autobahn is kind of catchy. We'll get into my next song on the list, number 24. It's Forever Young, the slow version by Bob Dylan. So this song appears off Planet Waves, which is a solid album. I added at 4 stars. And there's two versions of this song on the album, a slower and faster. So personally, I'm not sure if it was necessary for both versions of the song to appear on the album. And I think if you were going to do it, I wouldn't have had them back to back, which I get. It's two different sides. So in the olden days, you would actually have to flip the album. But still, it's the two versions following one after another. So I think if you're going to do it, I would open and close and have the two songs bookend the album. So similar to what Neil Young did on his 1989 album Freedom, where he had an electric and acoustic version of Rockin' in the Free World. But yeah, both versions are good, but the slower version is basically the one that really resonates with me. Like it's emotionally much more impactful. So apparently, Bob wrote this song for his oldest son. And he was basically expressing the desire that he grows up to have a happy life. So, of course, that's a relatable feeling for parents to want their child to experience that kind of life. But even if you're not a parent, just the idea that you have that longing for eternal youth. So yeah, there's just something about the tune that really makes me warm and fuzzy inside. So song number 23, it's Carpet Crawlers by Genesis. And I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Genesis fan. I'm not particularly a prog fan. At the risk of getting slagged, the album that this is off of, the lies down on Broadway. It's just okay for me. And I had it at 3 stars. But I do dig this too. And I also think it's aptly titled. There's something about the music that just creeps up on you. Like it's creepy in the best possible way. So yeah, I dig the tune. So we now got song 22, M&M's by Black Heat. So as mentioned on the previous video, the album that this is off of, No Time to Burn, was a really cool new discovery that made my list of top 25 albums. So it is somewhat obscure, but the album was really funky. And many of the tracks on the album had an edge to it, and several tunes featured political commentary. But this song's a bit of a departure on the album because it's a bit more playful. So M&M's refers to meat and money, and I'm assuming meat is an euphemism, but I'm naive, so I'm not 100% sure. But either way, it's catchy and it's fun to sing. Meat and money, meat and money. So yeah, that's song number 22. So song number 21 is Loose Booty by Sly and the Family Stones. So the first time I became familiar with this song was because it was heavily sampled in the Beastie Boys tune Shadrach. It is good to know that many songs I discovered because of the Beastie Boys album Paul's Boutique, which is basically one of the greatest examples of sampling as an art. And it's an album that can be made nowadays because laws are different now and it'd be really expensive to create that kind of album. But yeah, I discovered a lot of songs because of the Beastie Boys. But yeah, the chorus, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, which was also heavily featured in the Beastie Boys tune. It's just really fun to chant. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. And really, the entire song is a righteous call to cut loose and shake your booty. And then we got song number 20. We got Strength of Strings by Gene Clark. So the album that this is off of, No Other, it was one of my fave albums of 1974. And I had it at a solid 4.5 stars. And the entire album is goddamn gorgeous. But this tune in particular is the epitome of that. The song, majestic, cinematic, musical feel, well complements the powerful lyrical poetry. So, yes, just a really gorgeous tune. And then song number 19, The Drum by Slap Happy. So, this tune is off the self title album by the avant pop band. And sometimes it's also known as Casablanca Moon. And the album was decent. I had it at 3.5 stars. It's a mix of experimental and accessible. And this tune is really the best example of that mix of quirky and catchy. And part of the catchy quirkiness is the interplay of the male and female vocals. So I just really dig the groove of this song. So song number 18, The Cavalry Cross by Richard and Linda Thompson. So the album that it's off of, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, is a strong album which made my top 25. So this is my personal highlight off the album. There's just something haunted about the music, and it really features abstract poetic lyrics. So I'm not entirely sure what it's about, but I'm thinking maybe it's about death. To me, it seems like it could possibly have something to do about entering the great beyond, but I could be wrong. But I know it's a provocative song that really hits hard on an emotional level. So song number 17, This Town Ain't Big Enough for Both of Us by Sparks. So this is the perfect showcase of the Mark Bolan meets Tiny Tim vocals of Russell Mael and the idiosyncratic but accessible musical arrangement of Ron Mal. I mean, I really don't know what else to say about this song except that it's really infectious too. Like it just, I really dig it. So we now got song number 16, Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe by Barry Wright. So if you were conceived sometime after the song was released, there's a good chance your parents will bang into this tune. So thank you for your service, Mr. Wright. So we now got song number 15, You Haven't Done Nothing by Stevie Wonder. So the album that this is off of, Villainous First Finale, which is a bit of a tongue twister, but that album is a strong album that barely missed my top 25. So the album was released during what's often referred to as Wonder's classic period. So it was the period between 1972 to 1977, and he released 5 albums during that period. So this is my least favorite album that time period, but it's still a strong album. Like this time period, it's one of the best 5 year and 5 album runs that any artist has ever had. Every album he released ranged from really strong to all-time classic. And part of what I appreciate about Wonder is his social awareness. So just about every album he released during this period contained at least some social commentary. And this catchy, hard-hitting protest tune might be his most explicitly political song. It's a scathing indictment of the Nixon administration. But because it stops short of naming Nixon by name, it makes it an evergreen tune. It can really apply to a whole slew of politicians. So sadly, the song is still relevant. So song number 14, They Say I'm Different, Betty Davis. So this is the title track off of Betty's excellent album that also made my top 25 album list. So this tune, it's really filled with funky goodness and it really has a irresistible groove. And Betty's badass attitude is also on fine display. I just really love her vocals. And I also appreciate how the lyrics, they basically pay homage to the blues and R&B artists that became before Betty and really helped pave the way for her. So yeah, it's just a really cool, funky tune. And then we got song number 13, Never Turn Your Back on Planet Earth by Sparks. So initially I was going to limit one song per artist, but because this is on a different album, I decided to make an exception. So even though This Town Ain't Big Enough for Both of Us is the more well-known tune, I do prefer this song. But both of those tunes represent two sides of the same coin. So you got This Town, which is catchy and you can dance to it. And then there's this tune that also shows that they have the ability to pull off these dramatic and cinematic ballads. Also, the environmental theme of the tune is also even more relevant now. So it's an absolutely gorgeous tune. And it's also good to note that Nico Case also recorded a beautiful cover of the song. So we now got song number 12, Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, Sweet, by Frank Zappa. So this is a bit of a cheat because technically it's the first four songs off his album Apostrophe, which did make my top 25 album list. But in order to get the full experience of Nanook the Eskimo, you need to listen to all four songs in all of its 10.5 minute absurd glory. So there's a juvenile part of me that forever gets a kick out of Zappa's twisted sense of humor. But he can also pull it off because of his musical brilliance. Like there's compositional elements that border on classical. And then there's also some first-rate guitar work. So as I mentioned in the previous album video, Zappa is just a demented genius. Then we got track number 11, or we can say song number 11, Take Me to the River by Al Green. So the first time I heard this song, it was actually the Talking Heads version, which I love. But then I eventually realized they were covering Al Green, and I ended up loving Green's version even more. The arrangement is pretty close, but no disrespect to David Byrne because he's a solid vocalist. But obviously, Green is just more soulful and there's more ache in his voice. But either way, the song is a vibe. And then we got song number 10, Rebel Rebel by David Bowie. So the album it was off of, Diamond Dogs. It was decent, but it was one of his Recourse 70s album. But he did set the ball fairly high during that time period. But this song's a classic Bowie tune, and it's fun to sing along to. Hot Tramp, I Love You So. So we now got song number 9, Then Belly Furl, But We Hungry by Bob Marley and the Wailers. So this powerful tune is off Natty Dread, which was a solid 4.5 stars, and it made my best album list. But part of what I love about Marley is his ability as a social commentator. He's able to make insightful statements on the political climate without coming across as being overly preachy or heavy handed. Part of that has to do with his sincerity. But considering this specific song, I'll talk about it a bit more when I record my list of 10 protest songs from 74. So we got song number 8. It's Jolene by Dolly Parton. Not sure if I'll get slagged for saying this, but the first time I heard this song, it was actually the White Stripes version. They basically released two versions of it. They released a studio and a live version, and both featured Jack's Wright's impassioned vocals. So you could tell he had proper reverence for the original source material. So at the time, I wasn't really into country, with the exception of Johnny Cash and possibly Willie Nelson. And I'm still not a hardcore country fan, but my respect has grown, and my respect for Parton in particular has grown. My respect for her as both a singer and songwriter, and she's absolutely a gifted storyteller, and there's a reason why she is timeless and she transcends genres. So this song tells a relatable story, and it's equal parts emotional and fun to sing along to. So it's basically like the ultimate karaoke tune. And then we got song number 7, The Bottle by Gil Scott-Heron and Brian Jackson. So this poignant tune is from their excellent album, Winter in America, which did make my top 25 album list. It was a strong 4.5 stars. And like most of the songs on the album, this tune does deviate from the spoken word poetry slash proto rapping of some of his earlier works. But on this album, Gil displays a smooth singing voice. And on this song in particular, there's even a lyrical flow that borders on rap singing. So you can see where this would be considered an influence on modern day hip hop. I also love the vibe of the musical canvas created by Jackson, which is the perfect platform for Gil's topical lyrics. And these lyrics really well articulate the social conditions which could lead someone to become a slave to alcohol. And we now got song number 6, Ambulance Blues by Neil Young. So this song is one of the 4 5-star albums from 1974. So this tune really was the perfect way to close the album. And it well fits in with the feelings of alienation expressed throughout the album. There's also a sense of wistful longing in the lyrics that we hit on a personal level. And the song is also chock full of lyrics that emotionally resonate, including the line, "It's easy to get buried in the past when you try to make a good thing last." And then song number 5, Help Me by Joni Mitchell. So this was also one of the 4 albums that were 5 stars. And this song really is the perfect showcase of what makes the album so brilliant. The tune hits the sweet spot between jazzy and folky. It also features Joni's angelic vocals and the lyrics that are equal part poetic and relatable. So really, it's just a goddamn gorgeous tune. And song number 4 is September Girls by Big Star. So the album this is off of, Radio City, was also one of my 4 5-star albums from my list. And I don't know exactly what to say about it. It's just really a feel-good, jangly, quintessential power pop tune. And then there's Alex Chilton vocals and lyrics. They are just lovely, like children's vocals. Like he really is effective in when it comes to imparting a sense of longing. So yeah, it's just a gorgeous, catchy tune. And speaking of gorgeous tunes, we got song number 3, $1,000 Wedding, Graham Parsons. So yes, this is a gorgeous song off an album, Fill It Down. And I'm not entirely sure what the song is about. I don't know if the protagonist is stood up at the altar or if his fiance dies. But either way, it's a heartbreaking tune. And for me, it's impossible to listen to without tearing up and getting choked up a bit. The song, it just devastates me in the best possible way. And then we got song number 2, Sundown by Gordon Lightfoot. So this is the title track off the album that I added 4.5 stars, and it made my top 25 album list. And for me, this is one of the most I'd say, deceptively chill tunes ever. Like it's laid back, but it's laid back with an edge. For example, the lyrics are about infidelity, and sundown is not a reference to the cheating woman, but instead it's a reference to the man who is pursuing her. So in that context, there's a certain badassness to the lyrics. Sundown, you better take care if you been creeping round my back stairs. So yes, you don't want to mess with God. He's ready to lay a beating on the man. But yeah, I really love this song. It's a absolute classic. And then song number one, my favorite song of 1974, Chelsea Hotel, number two, by Leonard Cohen. So the album this was off of was a strong 4.5 stars, and it made my top five. So as referenced in the previous video, this song is written about Janis Joplin, and it's basically about having a one-night stand with the singer. And it does contain raunchy lyrics such as "Give me head on the unmade bed," but the meaning of the lyrics go much deeper than Leonard getting freaky with Janis. For example, in the context of being about Joplin, the lyric, "You got away, didn't you, baby? You just turned your back on the crowd." It resonates in the light of Janis' troubled life and the struggles of fame, which ultimately led to her untimely passing at 27. And there's also the provoking concluding line where Leonard says, "That's all. I don't even think of you that often." I mean, I could be totally wrong and overanalyzing, but I don't believe Leonard when he makes that statement. And I don't think we're supposed to believe him. As a coping mechanism, he's trying to minimize or impact on his life. He has regrets that his moments with her were fleeting. So the idea of not wanting to process complex human emotions is something that's totally relatable. And I think the song conveys that concept fairly well. But of course, I could also be way off base. I could be totally wrong. Maybe it's just about Leonard getting freaky with Janis. But either way, it's a gorgeous tune. So that concludes my list of the top 25 songs of 1974. And it's also good to point out that four of those 6 songs, of the top 6 songs, were by Canadians. So I like to give props to my fellow Canucks. So what did you think about the list? What songs would you include on your list? Feel free to protest the list in your comments. And if you enjoyed the video and you want me to keep making content, please like and subscribe. And also feel free to check out the website, Ongoing History of Protest Songs.com. In connection with that, in the next few days, I'll be releasing 2 others 1974 videos, and this will be more closely connected to the objective of the website. I'll be releasing a video of the top 10 protest songs of 1974 and top 10 protest albums of 1974. So that concludes the video. Thanks for watching, and please stay safe. But yeah, Autobot is kind of catchy.